Welcome to Diary of a Dreamer, where resilience unlocks your potential. I'm Tasha Eisinger, and each week I'll bring you powerful stories and practical insights from my own experiences and inspiring guests. Whether you're facing challenges or chasing dreams, this podcast is your go-to for motivation, building confidence, and practical tips for transforming obstacles into opportunities. Be sure to check out my website, tashaeisinger.com. Let's dive into today's episode and start turning your dreams into reality. Today we are with Mary Cooper. She was actually somebody I met at a networking event and became a realtor. She's now a friend, and not only a realtor, she was our realtor, and of course has become a friend. Mary has been in real estate now for 12 years, and before that has 20 years of marketing and advertising experience, which is tremendous. And we are going to talk all things entrepreneurship and maybe hint at a couple fun things that we're working on as well for future events for entrepreneurs. So Mary, thanks for being here today and sharing all things real estate, because I think there's a lot of confusion with it right now.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
exciting. So it was funny because you were a repeat person at the networking group, weren't you? That we were
Mhm.
part of?
Yes.
So a couple people that I've turned into really good friends only came one time. But you and I were there repeatedly, and I remember I remember talking about swimming, and I'm like, once I've met a swimmer, we're connected.
Absolutely. Once a swimmer, always a swimmer. Yes,
That's right. And we're kind of a different breed of people.
for sure. I mean, who else would get up at, incredibly early morning hours and get into cold water and actually think that you enjoyed it?
I know. I think I have
Yeah.
a complex about being cold. I think we've talked about that. I really hate being cold. And I think it's because of all of those laps being swum in very cold water.
Yep.
You were in marketing and advertising for 20 years, which is
Mhm.
tremendous. What got you into real estate?
Well, interesting enough, when I was working in a newspaper for some of those years, some of those 20 years, and a lot of my clients were realtors. So I got to know them, and it was just one of those things, seeing them week in week, grabbing their ad copy, coming up, brainstorming some ideas for their marketing. And I just, in the back of my head, I said, when when I retire, I think I want to get into real estate. And then the opportunity came. And it was just at that point in time, it was a matter of not finding the value. I didn't feel that my particular employer was finding my value, and I struggled with that. So the day came that I needed to change things up, and so then I'm like, well, I'm going to go talk to one of my real estate clients and see what the possibility is. And ironically, I had actually helped my daughter get into business first.
Oh,
Same client, same advertising client. She was about a year and a half ahead of me. And she was young, and she was struggling trying to be a mom and punch a time clock and, similar things. And so we got her going with this said realtor. And then when my time came around about a year and a half later, went to said realtor, and she's like, you do have a little bit of a problem. I'm like, oh, your daughter and you are going to have the same clients, more, your sphere of influence. Everybody, that's your, we all have our sphere of influence. And we're like, yeah, that is. She goes, why don't you guys just become partners?
smart. That's very smart.
Yeah. So that's what we did, and we worked as partners for several years. Welcome Home Michiana, that's where we kinda took our group or our team together, and that was what our team name is. So, she's no longer with me, she has moved on and is doing some other things and lives in another state right now, but we still chat real estate. It never goes away. Yeah.
I love that. And you represent Southwest Michigan and Northern Indiana.
Correct. Correct. So I will go anywhere up in Michigan, just south of the Kalamazoo area. I don't necessarily serve Kalamazoo, but I have referral agents there. So St. Joe, Benton Harbor, all along the lake shore, LaPorte into the Indiana, as south as Lakeville, Plymouth area, and then as far east over to Elkhart, even popping up back up into Michigan, even Union, Michigan, and sometimes Three Rivers. So pretty broad area.
That's a lot of ground to cover, Mary.
It is. It is.
I love it. Well, and I think this is going to be hopefully a tip for all business people as well as realtors. I had a few friends when we were getting ready to sell our house, had a few friends who are realtors. And I thought, which one am I going to pick? And it was a hard decision because I value friendship more than I do business.
Mhm.
However, something that I appreciated about you, Mary, is that my business endeavors you have completely supported 100%. And you've given me referrals, you've made connections, you've bought my books, my network marketing company, you've used those products and even came to a meeting and shared some of your time. And I didn't feel like it was just a simple business strategy. I mean, there is some strategy to that of supporting people because you know what it's like to
Mhm.
be in business. You want to support each other, but it didn't
Absolutely.
feel slimy, right?
Well,
And
that's
so,
good.
yeah. And so when I thought about the three people that I know and care about, I thought Mary has been super supportive. Why would I not want to support your business? So that's why I picked you. And I think that's important. So, how do you balance? You can't possibly buy everybody's products and use everybody's stuff and go to everybody's things. So, how do you balance being supportive and yes, having some business strategy, but also not being gross about it?
Well, authenticity is absolutely key. Absolutely key. And there's a lot of things with a lot of my clients. I mean, down to the simplest is, I'm on social media. It's part of my marketing. Even being on market, on the social media, there's a lot of startups, even more so now that I think that we've ever had. So there's a lot of folks that have their startups. So I will see their startup and their initiatives, and we've all seen those posts. What does it take to support a small business? Like, follow, share. And so that's just so basic. Sometimes you can just align with what they're doing. And that's where you and we just aligned so well. And so when you're able to do that, and it's not just a matter of just aligning the products, but it's aligning the mentality. So, so I think that's why our relationship has grown as much as it has. Even on those that have been, past clients or this, you talk about the slimy. I have Facebook requests all the time, and I don't accept them all. I don't. I might know them, or I'm a friend of 6 degrees of separation. Um, but I will go back and I will look at their posts on their page. And when I see that there's very little personal, but they're all promoting their product, and product, I'm like, I don't want to be spammed. I really don't want to be spammed with that. So because that's not a relationship, and that's the thing. It's about nurturing authentic relationships. And the best way, that's how you can help support other clients and, fellow women and friends in the business and any business.
Yeah. And I think you've done that really beautifully in your career and in your life, just in general. And when we started working together to sell my home and buy a new home and the whole thing, something that really impressed me was you really took the time to make sure you understood what we were wanting, what we
Mhm.
didn't want, and that you were laying everything out and communicating something that's really complicated with lots of paperwork and all of that, and simplifying it in a way that we could understand and make sure that you were communicating effectively. You shared your strategy of how you wanted to go about it based on the market. So I think some of your superpowers as a realtor are clear communication and also staying up to date on everything. So how do you do all of that?
Well, I think not. I operate from the sense that knowledge is power. So the more information that I can give you, and and I always, whenever I'm chatting, with my clients, I always apologize because I say I'm going to information overload on you. Um, but it comes back to the same technique that knowledge is power. So the more information that I can give you in your situation, then you're going to make better decisions. I'm also, especially with listing the house for sale, is we can control our side of the transaction. Okay. You know me, I know you, I know your desires, I know your wants, I know your level of negotiation, all those things. I know your fears, all of that. But we can't do anything about the third party on the other side of the transaction. So with my strategy, especially with listing, is there's a lot of things we do up front to make sure that the transaction is successful. And one of those, for instance, is a pre-home inspection. And that is so, so, so crucial. And those who don't have that pre-home inspection, once we get under contract and we're working with a buyer, all of a sudden there's a lot of surprises that many times comes up. I really want to say, I told you so, but I can't say that. Um, but that's what it is. So it's a matter of being knowledgeable, controlling everything on our side of the transaction that we can.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
moving parts.
there is. There is. But that's what we do. That's the benefit of hiring a realtor. I mean, we're trained. Um, for the longest time, I think at 10 years, I finally started putting the tagline, experienced realtor. Before that, and every transaction is different. We're learning every transaction, so we never stop learning, um, and now I feel like I have enough background and experience that I've seen things, some funny and some very horrid. Um, and you just take all that information that you've gathered over 12 years and you just use it, and
Yeah, I love that you've stayed the course because any entrepreneur, if they're honest, is going to say it's really hard. It's a hard journey, but also having a boss can be hard, or being an employee, can be hard. So, what do you feel like has helped you stay the course for 12 years in a profession that is challenging?
a little addicted to my work. I would say that, because I just love it. It's just one of those things where the hard days are hard. They're fewer than the other days. And, every time when those hard days come, you realize you just have to talk to yourself. This is not the end of the world. This is this situation, and how are we going to make it through that situation? And usually it's transactional. Usually, sometimes it's motivational. Days like today, oh my goodness, this is a struggle today because there's no sun and it's snowing and it's gloomy and it's cold and all those things, and I have to go put um, a for sale sign out in a yard, and I have to be out in it today. And I'm just like, "Ah," but it's just today. And, tomorrow will be a sunnier day. Um,
Let's hope. Please.
yeah, I know. So, getting back to your question is how do you balance? The other thing that it's really, really important is protecting my time. And I have this conversation with all my clients is I'm I'm always available. However, 8 o'clock at night, my phone goes to silent. And I might still have access. I might still be working, but if I'm not, it's okay. And there's a couple reasons why I do that, because sometimes I have clients that work third shift, and they're looking at houses at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And for me to expect them to not send those to me would be a shame. So I'm like, send me the text. Go ahead and call, leave the voicemail. I will get it in the morning. And I do that for the sake of my family time, my peace of mind. And then I also, craft my showing times in my calendar to make sure that I have plenty of family time and rest time. And, it's just, we all talk, we talk a lot lately in the last few years about work balance, work family life balance. And it's hard when you're getting started to find that. But now that I'm in the business and most of my clients are repeat clients or referral, they already know how I operate, and explaining them, even new clients, explaining that to them, they never have an issue with. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's good." Fine.
One, I think because you're upfront about it, you let them know these are kind of the way I work and they can take it or leave it, right? And so I also think when we set those boundaries of when we're available or how to communicate with us, I think it also gives other people permission to do the same thing, because
Right.
some realtors have a horrible reputation for working around the clock. They're working themselves to death. And that's not okay. I want somebody who's going to be mentally sharp, who's going to enjoy their job, and is going to be able to find me a house or sell my house or whatever versus working themselves to the bone, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. It's, I laughed at my husband yesterday because, we were just talking about schedules and things. I said, I looked at my watch and, it was about this time last night, 9:37. I'm like, "Well, this has been a good 12-hour day."
Yes.
You know? And it's just, but not every days are 12-hour days. So, I'll have 3 days that are, like, just absolutely insane where I'm just, like, 7 a.m. out the door and, done writing contracts or whatever at 9 or 10 at night. And then I'll have 3 or 4 days where, "Well, I don't have any appointments today. I'm going to relish it." And that's when I have to work in my business instead of out in my business. But to your point is setting expectations. And if we set the expectations up front, um, again, no surprises. Everybody knows what to expect, and it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, there's a couple things you said that I want to hit on. I think first of all, and I'm going to keep saying this possibly on every episode, but success comes from hard work over time. And entrepreneurs, even though we have flexibility, you still have to put in the hours.
You do.
But I like that you're not saying, "Oh, I do 12-hour days, 7 days a week," because that's not healthy. So you have to decide, when do you have to sprint, when can you walk, when can you rest,
Exactly.
right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think sometimes people think because I work from home that everything just magically gets done and I'm not working. I don't know. It's the most bizarre thing. People just think I'm always available and I don't work or something. So even if you're working from
It's
home or whatever, you have flexibility like you have, you still have to work, right?
right. And even when, I was out of town last weekend and I was working.
Yep.
I came down from the hotel room, Friday morning, and I was in St. Louis, and gorgeous hotel we were at, but I came down and, oh my gosh, there was probably 70 other people in this hotel in all these little different places working, and I'm like, "Wow, I feel like I belong here. This is kinda cool."
They were your people.
Yeah. So, put my earbuds on and did my work, and, I had some phone calls to make, but that is the nice thing. I mean, physically, we're out and about, but there's always, prospecting, there's always educating, training, paperwork, it goes on and on.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that kind of takes me to the second thing I wanted to talk about was you talked about working in your business and out of your business. Differentiate that for people, especially if there's like a new realtor listening. They may want to know, what do you mean by that and how do you plan your schedule around that?
perfect. So, I'll give you a scenario. When I stopped working, um, at my wasn't necessarily an 8 to 5 job, it was a little longer than that, but when I stopped punching that time clock and I got into real estate, I didn't know what to do. I had the habit of getting up at 6:30 in the morning and going somewhere. And I literally went, "Where am I going? What do I do?" And I would sit in front of my computer like, Well, let's see here. Oh, look, there's some houses available. Let's go check. You know, it was just, it was so different in the head, you know. So what I learned, went to some phenomenal training. It's called Ninja training. Um, and it's real estate geared, but I think anybody could learn from this. And you can buy the book also. Anyway, working in your business. So in the mornings, that's when I schedule transactional time, phone calls, setting appointments, reaching out to clients. Out of the business means showing houses, doing listing appointments, different things like that. I do in the afternoon or evenings. So very rarely will I take a showing or listing appointment in the morning. Sometimes you have to. I have one tomorrow morning at 9:30 because that's what the client, that's what works with the client. So, you know, I can't be hard set on that. But because if we don't spend the time in the business, then we have nothing to do when we're out. I have a little note here, you know, 5 conversations a day is my goal. Picking up the phone, calling, you know, friends, family, you know, all those folks, whatever. Um, but I do that in the morning because in the afternoon, when I'm not focused, I know myself well enough to know that in the afternoon, I'm not going to be as focused. So that's where in the afternoon, all the appointments happen. And that's working out in the business.
Okay, so that's great to hear the difference, which makes sense. But I always like to ask the questions to make sure I'm following
Sure.
you.
Absolutely.
So, what's the name of the book? You said it's Ninja. What's
Ninja selling, Ninja. I think it's called Ninja selling.
Ninja Selling? Okay, and
Yeah.
then one book that I recommend too is The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy. Because
Ooh, I
switching
love Darren
from
Hardy.
yeah, he's good. Switching from like the employee mindset of having a boss tell you what to do or a manager say these are the things that need to get done versus you determining as the employer, the entrepreneur of these are the things I have to do to produce results. It's a huge mindset shift.
Absolutely.
You have to be self-motivated, solution oriented, right? All of those things. And one of the things that you had mentioned is that like you have a morning showing, which you don't normally do. So what are some of your hard, fast rules that are non-negotiable with you? And some that you're like, okay, I can this time I can adjust my schedule. So what are the hard, fast no's and the negotiable things?
Mm, interesting. Hard, fast nose. That's a tough one. Um,
Can I
I
give you one of yours that I noticed in you? And this is one of the reasons why I respect you so much is when we were going through all the buying, selling stuff, you would say different things of sometimes realtors will do this, but that doesn't align with my values. I don't feel like that's
yes,
of integrity. So for me, that stands out as one of the reasons why I want to continue working with you and other things that we'll mention in a moment. But you have very strong values of what's ethical and not ethical.
absolutely, absolutely.
That could be a whole nother
Yeah,
episode, couldn't it?
yeah. You know, and it's tough because there's a lot of folks out there that, oh, I'm honest, that you can trustworthy, you know, all the, you know, adjectives of such. But actions speak louder than words. And at the end of the day, and I've lost. I have lost out on deals. I have had to put money out of my pocket because of a mistake that I made. Because we're human, errors happen, you know. But when it comes down to the bottom line is I am accountable for my business. I am accountable for what I do. It just is huge for me. Some see that maybe as a weakness, but I feel it as as a strength. So that is a hard no. I mean, I will always do what's right. And sometimes you really have to think about it because sometimes there is a fine line. And it's not like you're looking to do the wrong. It's not that at all. It's just this is you know, um, a moment where you really have to think it through and then make a decision and just to always choose right. There was a part of my life growing up where I was a very just, you know, latchkey kid. I learned to be sneaky and manipulative and all those things. And it took many years for me to undo that. I did not like that part of me. So might have gone way over on the other side of that. But um,
But
so
you know
that's
what
one of the
though?
things.
I had a mentor once tell me, because in network marketing, there's a lot of gray areas too that you have to decide, is this ethical? Is it's not? My number one thing was I do not people steal, is what it's called in network marketing,
Absolutely. Yeah,
right? That's so unethical. Is it legal? Sure. Can it be compliant sometimes? Sure. Can I sleep at night? Nope. So he would tell me when I was learning the rules of the game, if you will, which real estate, has rules of the game.
absolutely.
And he would say, at the end of the night, you've got to put your head on your pillow and fall asleep.
Hmm.
And you're right. Some of those things you have to think about. Well, it's not totally unethical, or all these other people are doing it, right? But if you don't feel true to yourself, that's not okay. So, could you share maybe a couple of examples where maybe it's a gray area and where there's kind of like the ethical versus unethical way of handling it so that people can be alert to, I know I want an ethical person to
Right.
work with, right? So that it can kind of signal to people, maybe I don't want to work with this agent.
So there's a few. One situation involved in right now is I have a client that has been a friend for a long time. They sold their house, but they didn't use me. And I was aware of it, but I really, I wasn't that upset. I was like, oh, bummer, oh well. So whatever the reason. So now they're buying a house. And we have had this conversation that the person who sold their house was also under the impression that they were going to use them to sell that. And this other realtor, we're friends, not best buddies or anything, but we've had transactions together and respectful and all that good stuff. So when I meet with these clients, I ask them, well, what about this other realtor? Did you sign? Because when you're working with a realtor, you have to sign a document. That's been one of the changes lately, and I'm not going to go into that deep now, but it's a little bit of a change in our industry in the last year. So you have to sign a document with said realtor before you can enter a house. So I had asked him, several times, are you sure you haven't signed anything? Are you sure you haven't signed anything? And they're like, no, Mayor, we would have remembered. Nope, we didn't. And she hasn't been sending us anything so I'm like, okay, that's fine. Um, but there was still this, it was kind of heavy, just uh, I don't like taking business away from another realtor. So what we agreed was the buyer, okay, would increase their commission to me a little bit so that I can take that additional and send it over to that agent. So it's like a referral, okay? Except the agent didn't refer me, the buyer, the buyer's referring. And that way it keeps the peace, it keeps the integrity of the relationship. My buyers can move on in the direction that they want and feel confident. And yet the other agent who has already benefited from the sale, but then they don't feel like you know, they lost a client because I stole them or something like that. It really wasn't that at all, that they had come to me. So that's one of the things where, I don't have to, I owe her nothing, but that's the right thing to do. So,
Yeah. Well, and
yeah,
I'm sure if the tables were turned, that's what you would want, right? So if you can create a win-win and put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, well, what would make me feel okay about it and not feel like I don't want to work with this person anymore? Is
mhm,
that kind of what
yeah,
I'm hearing as you think of win-win solutions and what you would want done to you? The old golden
absolutely.
rule.
The golden rule. Yes. Always still tried and true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
So
uh,
what are some things people should look for when picking an agent to work with?
obviously integrity is huge. As I noted earlier, education. It's not just a matter of opening doors. And there's a lot of thought, especially now because it's, our industry is changing by new laws and so forth and so on. You're looking for an agent that is going to educate you, explain the process, listen to you, and what your needs, wants, and desires are. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to meet all of those. Okay. If there, if there's some things that just aren't going to work, you don't just say, okay, okay, and walk on. You're like, well, wait a minute. Let's see, I hear what you're saying, but this might be the better way to do that. So I think that's huge. Experience is important. What I'm seeing now is a lot of young buyers in particular, because there's so many resources out there for homes. If you click on the Zillows, the Trulias, the all of those online, many times when you see those agents on the side, they're paying for your lead. So as soon as you click and you say, I want that, I want to schedule a showing, well, then that phone rings to about 10 different realtors, and whoever picks the phone up first gets that lead.
I could understand if you're moving to an area where you know nobody, maybe,
Maybe.
but oh,
Uh,
I don't
well,
like that.
and I can tell you, and I'll come back to this, but I can tell you, anybody, if you're in Texas, if you're in any type of the world, and if you have a realtor that sold you your home, that realtor, go to them and say, find me a realtor where I'm relocating to.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yes.
great information.
That is the best way, because they're gonna do the research, or they're gonna find someone who is in their referral network, and many times they operate under the same business model, but at least it's a softer handoff, rather than getting somebody on the other line who you don't know. Once and now I'm back to the Zillow call. Once you call that person, you are committed to them, and
Even if
that's
you haven't signed anything, you're already committed to that
you can't.
person.
Well, and that's where you have to pay attention to the form that you're signing at that point in time.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
it wasn't always like that until last August.
okay. That's a tricky game to play.
It is a very tricky game to play. Yes, and that's why I do buyer counsels. So if you want to see a house, that's fine. But when I give that form, I only commit for that house until we've had that buyer counsel, because we have to have a relationship. If I don't like you, or if you don't like me, we don't want to be stuck together for 6 months, because we're both going to be miserable.
That's awful.
I mean, but it happens. So the form is tricky, and it's by law. It's something we have to do, and it's very scary to buyers. Very, very scary to buyers. Um, but it takes a little time, that when you explain it to them, and put them in a non put them in an easy situation. And that's why I say, when I do the form, it's for that showing only. There's no commission or anything. It's just, this is our counsel. This is your introduction. So we might meet at the house if it's a vacant house, and we will have our counsel right there at that showing. And then we will determine whether we want to meet together again or not from there. And then the next time we get together, then we'll start the more formal form. Um,
I like that because it's a softer point of entry, kind of like
Absolutely.
a test run,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so I love also because I know you so well now that you're taking all this experience and knowledge and now you're coaching people.
I am. Yes. So I've
That's
been
exciting.
it is. It is. I'm again learning with that. So I'm with Workman Success Systems. I started out being coached by them, which helped, also very, very high integrity. I'm just amazed by the whole team. Um, so my goal for that is, once I decide I don't want to sell houses or list houses anymore, to stay on as a master coach. Right now, I'm just a certified coach. So I'm like a level 1 out of 3. And so I've been coaching now for not quite not quite 2 years, almost 2 years now. And I love it. Do it, similar to what we're doing here over Zoom, and meeting coaches where they are and helping them get to better places in their business to help them if they want to grow a team, if they just need better systems because they just don't know what to do. It's so much fun. My goal is once I'm out of the business to keep coaching. And that's kind of going to be, my true retirement job as I thought I was doing 12 years ago, is to be able to do that because I can do that anywhere.
And you're
Anyway,
still in something that you're passionate about. And it
yes,
always feels good to help people. Like that's just
absolutely.
fun.
And the thing is they challenge me as well.
Mhm.
That's what I love about it is I'm giving, because every time I'm meeting with them, I mean, I have to do some research on what their goals and what they're trying to do. And much of it is within our coaching parameters, but sometimes you just have to dig a little deeper and help find tools and suggestions and ideas to get them where they want to get, where they want to be. So, and sometimes in doing that, I'm like, I learned something new too. So, and you always have to walk the talk. So if I'm saying you need to do this, you know, there's three fingers coming back to me. Am I doing it?
Exactly. I feel like that's leadership 101. That's like pretty much relationship building 101,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
I got to give a little plug to something that we're working on, and it's so early stages. I'm really excited about it, Mary.
I am
And
too.
we'll do another episode specifically about it, but it's going to be September 2026. We're doing an event specifically for entrepreneurs. And I cannot wait I know we're meeting again soon to go over more details and keep planning it. So
Yes,
had to
I'm
plug it
excited.
in.
Yeah, it's good. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, when you were talking about, coaching and wanting to give back, I'm like, that's kind of one of the things we want to do for other entrepreneurs because it can be a tough gig, but it's so rewarding.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So we'll do another episode and dive into that a little bit more. But any entrepreneurs
Perfect.
need to log off all of
Stay
September
tuned.
2026 till we have an exact date.
Right.
Oh my. So how can people get in touch with you, Mary, whether it's as an agent or needing referrals or even for coaching?
Sure, sure. Probably the best would be to either go through my Facebook, Welcome Home. Actually, no, I changed it. It's Mary Cooper with Coldwell Banker Realty, or if you just look up Mary Cooper, you're going to find me. My Facebook profile is pretty open. Or the other would be very easy to remember. WelcomeHomeMichiana.com is my website. And so all my contact information is on there. That's probably the easiest way, WelcomeHomeMichiana.com.
Wonderful. I'll put that in the show notes so that way people can get in touch
Wonderful.
with you. Thank you so much, Mary, for being here today and for your friendship as well. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Diary of a Dreamer. I hope you found the stories and tips shared today to be a source of motivation and strength. Remember, every challenge you face is a chance to grow and move closer to your dreams. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with anyone who could use a boost of encouragement. Please check out my website, tashaeisinger.com.